Welcome back. The South African motor industry is ending the year with record new vehicle sales, but also with mounting anxiety. Despite strong demand, local manufacturers are rapidly losing ground to a surge of low-cost imports, while government policies intended to boost production, jobs and transformation are falling short, I'm afraid. And with electric vehicle deadlines approaching in key export markets, manufacturers warn that decisive action in 2026 is not just desirable, it's essential for survival. We're joined now by David Furlonger, editor-at-large at the Financial Mail. David, good to chat to you on the close this evening. What's going on now? 2026, we're number one at the moment for our vehicles and producing them in South Africa, but we're going to lose this. What's the bottom line here?
Well, you did mention that, we were talking about record sales. In fact, we're well short of record sales. We're the best for about 10 or 11 years. But if we compare with, say, about 2006, 2007, I mean, we're a long way off there. The catch we have is that our production is going down. I mean, our sales, yes, they're looking very, very good. We're back to pre-COVID levels. And we're way behind schedule on that, but now we're looking very good. The problem is that most of those are imports, particularly from China and India. So actual local production is down. That's production of vehicles, production of components, job numbers are down, local content is down. We're way behind where we should be on black empowerment in terms of getting black companies into the industry. So, yeah, the sales numbers are wonderful, but behind the scenes, not so great.
Yeah, this sounds like policy, though. I mean, government policy. They were supposed to have a whole policy document on this, and it's not there. What happens if this just doesn't happen?
Well, this is the catch, because if you look at the policy, I mean, it was a very good policy. The APDP, the Automotive Production and Development Program, is a very good policy. It's the second stage of that program, and it was announced in 2018, and it runs from 2021 to 2035. And the plan was to double production, double jobs, increase local content by 50%. I mean, those were the baseline ones. Obviously, COVID got in the way and messed things around there a little. But since then, things simply have not been going as planned. And the government is aware of it. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Parks Tau, is very concerned by what's going on. The problem is turning that concern into action. And we do have a government here which has lots of good ideas, and I'm not just talking about in the motor industry, has lots of good ideas, but is not so good at putting them into practice. And what we actually need in the motor industry is urgent action to overcome those problems. And there's lots of talk, but there's not much action at the moment in terms of limiting imports, getting onto the electric vehicles that you alluded to earlier. We just need action. No more talking.
But what do you do here? I mean, in the United States, there's an Elon Musk. There are others who are producing these electric vehicles. What's the play here in South Africa?
Well, the catch is, if you look at what's happened in all the other countries where they've been making electric vehicles, they also have a very good market for electric vehicles in those countries. They've had lots of incentives, tax breaks, wonderful trade-in values for your old internal combustion engine vehicles. The government here is offering incentives, and it's only just starting now. I think it was two trade and industry ministers ago, Rob Davis, I think it was 2013, it was either 12 or 13, that he said we're now on the road to electric vehicles. 12 or 13 years later, we're still not. And like I said, if you look at those other countries, they have very strong markets, local markets. People are buying up electric vehicles, but it's only because of those incentives. They're actually not that popular, but because of the incentives they are. And the government here is saying, we want you to build them, but we're not going to incentivize anyone to buy them. So if you look at the most popular electric vehicles here, it's Toyota's Corolla Cross, which is what they call a basic hybrid.
Yeah.
So it has no plug-in, and it's a very simple vehicle. If you're going to buy anything else with plug-in capacity, you're looking at R500,000 at the very cheapest. And if you're looking at what they call a battery electric vehicle, which is purely electric, you're looking at 1 million or two or three or four. So we're just not buying electric vehicles here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, we can't afford that. There's no ways we can afford that. I thought, though, with our climate change stance and our new green economy, etc., we would actually have legislation that would push it that way, that you and I would have to buy an electric vehicle. But this hasn't happened.
Well, again, that's what's happening in other countries, but it's simply not happening here. And part of the problem is that government is saying, look, we're already spending so much on incentives through the APDP and the blanket policy called the South African Automotive Master Plan.
Yeah.
They're saying we're spending so much there, we actually can't spend any more. We can't afford the incentives that they'd offered in other countries.
Yeah.
The industry's response is, and the economy's response is, well, actually, you can't afford not to, because we've got, about 115, 120,000 jobs directly in vehicle and components manufacturing. The idea of the APDP is to double that to almost 250,000. But those numbers are diminishing. Jobs are being lost. And if you don't sort out the electric side of things, because remember that we export 2/3 of the vehicles we manufacture in South Africa. Most of those go to Europe, which in 10 years' time is going to outlaw petrol and diesel engines.
Right.
So, where are we going to sell the vehicles if we don't have electric vehicles?
Yeah.
And my view is that we probably will get there, but it's going to be a last-minute rush.
Yeah.
There's no long-term planning. And if you look at motor industry policy over the last few years, we always get there at the last minute, but this isn't quite so easy this time.
Yeah. Lastminute.com, as they call it, right? Sort of change tack a little bit, and there's concern about what's happening, and you alluded to it when we first started speaking. Chinese vehicles coming into this country, but we're not building them here. They're coming in. They're flooding the market. It's a great option because they're cheaper than other ones, and the quality's there. What happens to our job markets? What happens to our producers? Because the Eastern Cape and I don't know, it's just south of Pretoria, I'm sure the people there are thinking, what happens to my job soon?
If you're going to look at the APDP again, the plan is that they would get to 1.2 million vehicles manufactured by 2035. Now, at the moment, we've got 7 manufacturers, and I exclude the truck companies here. We're talking light vehicles, cars and buckets. So we need at least 6 or 7 more manufacturers to move into the country. And the government says, well, why don't we incentivize the Chinese? They're the logical ones because they're coming in numbers. But I don't think it's worth their while, because if you look at what's happening in China, they have spare capacity for 19 million vehicles a year. Cool. And so if you look at the subsidies they get from their government, plus the huge volumes they're doing, plus the spare capacity, to build 30, 40,000 here, in principle, does not make economic sense. So, it would be nice. This is why the industry is saying we need more protection.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, vehicles come in with 25%. The industry is saying, let's make it 30% or 35%. Let's do other things as well around ad valorem, which is a bit of a joke as well.
Sure.
So again, government is listening. It's very interesting that the head of of the National Union of Metal Workers, Irvin Jim, is probably the fiercest government critic of all on motor industry policy, but even he isn't getting that message across at the moment.
Sure. So what happens now, David? I mean, I was reading up about Mercedes-Benz. Now, they've been hit by tariffs because they export to the United States. BMW, they concentrate on Europe, being France and other ones as well. How is this overall picture going to affect them? Because as those Chinese vehicles come in here, like I said at the start, if I can get those quality vehicles for half the price, well, I'll go for that. How will this affect them then?
Well, you mentioned BMW. That's actually an interesting example because BMW exports 90 to 95% of what it manufactures here. So it builds only the X3, the SUV, and it's the only BMW plant in the world that builds the plug-in hybrid. So it's got a steady market outside the country. It's still got good export numbers. But you're right about the Chinese coming in because, yes, Mercedes-Benz has been hit very hard by the tariffs, Ford to a lesser extent. But at the moment, Europe is the main market for most of our companies. And again, I say, we've got 10 years. And in theory, 10 years should be enough to sort it all out. But coming back to what I said earlier, the government can't just wait until 1 or 2 years before. It's got to have a solid long-term plan. And at the moment, it doesn't appear to have one.
One of the other big concerns is that if other vehicles or Chinese vehicles come into our country, it's the resale value of those vehicles. Is the infrastructure here to service them? You'd always go with a Toyota, you'll go with a BMW, but we got new names coming in. And a lot of people are asking, this is great, we like what we see, but what happens in 5 years down the line? Do we know yet?
That's a very good question because a little while ago, I'd counted up that there were 25 Chinese brands on the market here. I think 3 or 4 more have come in since then. So let's work around a figure of about 30. I think probably half a dozen of those at the moment have very, very solid resale values. And they're actually doing pretty well. I think maybe up to a dozen will flourish, but I think we're going to see a number of Chinese companies will leave the market purely because they don't have a clear brand image.
Sure.
It's a Chinese brand, and I'm not going to go, I'm not going to specify any particular one, but some of them, they don't have a brand image here apart from being cheap. And that's not what people want. As you mentioned, we want the resale values. And if you look at the Havals and the Great Wall Motors and the Cherries, their resale values are pretty damn good. So I don't think they have an issue. But I personally would be sorry, I shouldn't say cherry, sounds too much like cherry. I would be a little cautious of buying 1 or 2 of those new brands that have come in because some will go. I don't think there's any question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, 2026, we're at the end of 25 now. Where do you see things going? Do you see government thinking, okay, right, we heard this interview, we saw this interview on the close, we're going to do something about this now? Is there something on the horizon?
2026 is the year when they always planned the initial review of the APDP. So 5 years into the APDP, let's have a full review. And the industry had been pushing for that to come forward to 2025 because they said it was very urgent, but the pleading fell on deaf ears. So government says it's on track for 2026. The problem is they still don't have anyone to lead the review. A lot of the paperwork and a lot of the modeling has been done. So there is still a very good chance that the review could be completed in 2026. But it is no good just completing the review. You've now got to act upon it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the catch because it's basically been drifting for the last 2 or 3 years, the whole policy.
Not good enough at all. David, thank you so much. Good to chat to you on the close. We do appreciate you taking the time. Thank you. Thanks very much. That was Editor-at-Large at the Financial Mail, David Furlonger.